Good morning, friends. Peace be with you. Today is the sixth Sunday of Lent. We also like to call it Palm Sunday. And we can't celebrate Palm Sunday together. We can't wave our palm branches together. But I hope today, as you hear this story, you remember and you wonder and you worship together the beautiful mystery of Easter. Before we begin today's story, let's take a moment and prepare for today's story. And that might look like closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. It might be sitting crisscross applesauce. Prepare for today's story. On the first Sunday of Lent, we remembered the baby that was born. This precious baby had Mother Mary and his father Joseph. And when the baby looked into his mother's eyes, he could already see the cross. And when he looked at his father Joseph, he could see the cross there too. Mary and Joseph loved the baby, took care for him, and the baby began to grow. On the second Sunday of Lent, we remembered the time that Jesus was in the temple. He was 12 years old, and they had come to Jerusalem to celebrate one of the high holy days. But when Mary and Joseph left with the rest of the people from their village of Nazareth, Jesus was not with them. And they found him 3 days later in the temple in Jerusalem, talking with the priest. They asked Jesus, "Why did you do this?" And Jesus answered in a strange way, "Didn't you know I would be in my Father's house?" Mary and Joseph did not understand, but they did not forget. On the third Sunday of Lent, we heard the story of Jesus' baptism. Jesus went to the river Jordan to be baptized by his cousin John. Jesus asked John to baptize him, and John said, "No, you are the Messiah. You must baptize me." But Jesus reminded John, "No, you are the one who is to come before me and prepare the way for me." So John baptized Jesus and took him into the dark chaos of the waters. And when he came up, the people said they saw a great light and a dove that came close. They also heard the voice that said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." On the fourth Sunday of Lent, we heard the story of Jesus in the wilderness. For 40 days and 40 nights, Jesus was in the desert. And a voice came and tried to test Jesus. 3 different times the voice tried to test Jesus, and every time Jesus said no. After the third test, the voice left and the angels came and kept Jesus safe. After those 40 days in the wilderness, Jesus went back across the River Jordan, and he began to do his work. Last Sunday, the 5th Sunday in Lent, we heard about the work that Jesus did. His work was to come close to people, especially to people that no one else wanted to come close to. Everyone that came close to Jesus was changed. Jesus came so close to this blind man that he was healed. He was well. And the people were changed. They could see things they could not see before. They could do things they could not do before. Jesus did his work with the people. And he finally realized that it was time for him to become a parable that he was teaching about. So he turned towards Jerusalem one last time. Jesus went to Jerusalem one last time. It was the Passover, so the city was full of many different people from many different lands. They thought Jesus was coming to be the king, but they weren't paying attention. Jesus did not come in riding a great white horse. He was not carried in by soldiers. No, Jesus came in riding a donkey, and it wasn't even his. He had to borrow it. When Jesus arrived into Jerusalem, people were waving palm branches, which was a sign of a king. On Monday, on Tuesday, and Wednesday, Jesus would go to the temple and teach. And at night, he and the 12 disciples would go to the Mount of Olives. The people watched, and they whispered. They thought that the Mount of Olives was the place the angels would come and make an army that would come and take over the Roman soldiers. On Thursday, the temple guard said, "We will take Jesus." But on Thursday, they could not find him. Jesus and his 12 disciples hurried through the dark streets to a house. They went upstairs, and in the upper room, they shared their Last Supper together. After they had everything to eat, Jesus took the bread. He gave thanks to God for it, and he broke it. And he said something like this: "Whenever you take this bread and share it like this, I will be there." Then he took the cup, and he gave thanks to God for it, and he said, "Whenever you take this cup and share it like this, I will be there." What was he talking about? How could they know? Jesus was always saying things like this. They did not understand, but they did not forget. And soon, they would understand. Suddenly, Judas, one of the 12, left. The other disciples sang a hymn together. And then Jesus and the 12 disciples, except for Judas, traveled to the Garden of Gethsemane because Jesus wanted to pray. After Jesus prayed, he came back and met the disciples. Out of the dark came Judas, and he greeted Jesus with a kiss. This kiss on the cheek was the signal to the temple guards that this was Jesus. The guards came out of the darkness and took Jesus away into the night. The disciples also went into the darkness. Now, I wonder if there's another part of a story that you have heard that could help us tell more about this story. Maybe it's one that you've heard here in our Godly Playroom, or maybe it's one you've heard in Sunday school. Share that right now with your family. What you could bring to this story to tell more about it. I also wonder what your work will be today. Maybe you want to make something about this story. Maybe another story that you have heard. Maybe something completely different. There are so many things to choose from, and only you know what's right for you. Before we go today, let's sing our goodbye song together. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. See you next time, friends.